Guys, this was the most weirdest and probably one of the most difficult procedures I've ever done. So stay tuned. I think you're going to enjoy this. I've shown you here what the before and after. But look at this weird little disc thing that's stuck on the eardrum, and the image you can see above me, that's what it looked like when it came out of the ear. And it was the most bizarre thing. And I'll get on to what I think's happened. But in order to get to that point, we've got to see the removal, which was equally tricky and very interesting as well. So I think you're going to enjoy this. By the way, I forgot to say who I am. If you've never watched before, I'm Nurse Richard, the Wax Wizard. Thanks for joining me. Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, etc., etc. Forgot to say that as well. It's because I was so excited about showing you this. Because I did this procedure yesterday. And as soon as I was doing it, I thought, oh, this is going to make a belting video, this. All the weirdos are going to really enjoy this. Have a look at this. Now, what do you think is going on there? And what that is? What's caused that? How am I going to get it out? It's one of the first things I was thinking. Because I looked at it, I thought, oh no. This procedure was also done in 2 parts. This was the first part. Didn't get it out this time. I had to send the lady away and come back at a later date. But let me briefly tell you what she'd been going through. Been having terrible trouble. A lot of people have something like this, often do, where she'd obviously, her hearing was muffled, a lot more reduced than it should be, which came kind of gradually but got worse and worse and worse, and it reached a critical point where she was really struggling. But it was giving her loads of other symptoms, mostly dizziness. She was feeling extremely dizzy and unsteady. Now, whether that was something else, we don't know yet. Became a bit uncomfortable as I was pulling that out. You'll see why a bit later on. Now, I was concerned. The reason why I was pulling that one there, I was hoping, this was a vain hope, it was a long shot, that what was sitting there on the eardrum, this weird disc thing, let's call it a flying saucer, because it looks like one, could have been attached to the other layer of skin that was coming out of the ear canal. So I was hoping that if I grabbed that, you never know, it might lift up with it. It was worth a shot. Now, it looks all weird like this because the skin's going all the way down to the eardrum, and there's a bit of oil pooling underneath it. So it looks really weird. Some beautiful imagery in this though. I hope you all appreciate it and enjoy it. I know I did when I was looking at the procedure again. It just looks really satisfying. So it's all the fine inch tube, this. So I was being really cautious because she was finding it a bit uncomfortable because it was probably pulling on the drum slightly as I was pulling it out. And she was quite nervous as well. I don't think she'd ever had anything like this done before. Now, it was a long shot that thing on the drum was going to come out with this, but we live in hope. I'm forever the optimist. Was it glass half full, not glass half empty? Always look on the positive. So as you can see here, there's a load of, I think, sodium bicarb that I put in here. It's often better for things like this that are sitting on the drum. It gets underneath it, softens it, and hopefully makes a little layer in between whatever that is and the eardrum, which looks okay, the bits you can see. Now, I don't normally remove hairs from here, not ones this tiny. The reason I am, it's really fiddly too. The reason I am is because I'm obviously going to go down there deep with the endoscope, and I don't want any hairs obstructing it, making it blurred, or obstructing the visual in any way, because when I'm going that close, it's really tucked around the bend as well. It's really difficult to get to. Not the straightest ear, not the biggest ear. And I need to make sure that I've got a perfect line of sight before I start sticking a little steel rod on top of someone's eardrum. Which somebody asked me, because I posted this video in the members section before, unedited, and they all said, oh, I was holding my breath there. Do you not get really nervous doing things like this? And the honest answer is yes, of course you do, because there's lots of risks involved, and there's a bit of damage you can do if you're not careful. So yes, it is a bit, you feel your heart fluttering a little bit, your breathing rate speeding up a little bit maybe. I don't know if you could see it there, but just above where the suction tube is, it's a little bit reddened. Now, I suspect that's where no, I'm not going to move the tube out of the way, is where she felt like slight discomfort as I was pulling out the skin that I'd removed prior to this. I suspect that's what's happened there. So at the moment I'm really gently hovering over it, just kissing the surface of it, in the hope that it will just jump up into the tube and jobs are good and Bob's your uncle. And out it comes, but that wasn't going to happen. And I had a few, as soon as I looked at it, I could see kind of how dry and I suspected rubbery it was. So what I did, after having a failed attempt here, I thought, I'm going to give her some drops, I think it was sodium bicarbonate, and she's going to come back in a few days, and hopefully this thing has softened up a little bit, and that's at this point here. So you can see above where it was reddened, that's all settled down now. That's okay. We just need to get this out. But why has it done this? It's a few, I mean, I've heard it described in a few different ways. I think neotympanum, I've heard it described as like a false eardrum, a fake eardrum, because the eardrum sheds from the centre, from the umbo, and it sheds outwards. I know Neil describes this really well as throwing a pebble into a still pond and it ripples outwards. So that's clearly been happening here. So this dead skin has been shedding off the eardrum from the middle outwards radially, and then it's just getting to a point in the circle and it's just stopped. For whatever reason, I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit retracted in that area and it's just kind of settled in that pocket and just built up layers and layers and layers and layers. And here's the point where I was really twitching. There's a point in this where I'm going to stop talking as well. I know that's not easy for me, and some of you might be going, hooray! But I want you to listen to the patient's reaction and the little chat we had afterwards, because we didn't know what it was going to look like until it came out. You've had a sneak peek at the start of the video, but we were we were quite shocked. So as you can see, there is some flexing of the eardrum there, which is okay. I'm not too concerned just yet because I've managed to catch that edge of it, and it is starting to lift up, but I've got zero wiggle room here, because you can see to the right hand side you've got the canal wall. Don't want to touch that with a tube. Not all those things combined to make it one of the most difficult things excuse me, I've ever done. It was so tricky. And you can just see there's like a, not necessarily an imprint, but maybe a bit of a dip where that's come from. And again, that's possibly the cause of why this has happened. The skin's just shedding there and got to that point and then just stopped and thinking, I can't get any further now. But it's so frustrating. And we were both on the edge of our seats. I know there's a lot of you who'll probably be holding your breath right now. I think it's at this point it's going to start moving, and I'm going to be quiet so you can listen to the patient's reaction. Come on, up you come. There we go.
Oh my goodness.
Wow, that is the weirdest thing ever. It's like a flying saucer. Do you remember them sweets? Flying saucers with the sherbet in. Yeah. That's right, looks just like a flying saucer. Can you see the rings on that? Circles all the way around it. Now what that probably is obviously as it's shedding outwards and it's then just stopping. And I suppose it's a similar-ish theory to the lines in a tree trunk, you know, when you slice a tree down. Not that I've ever done any tree felling. There's a joke about tree fellers. But I'm not going to tell that one. In case I've got any Irish viewers watching, you'll know exactly what I mean. So yeah, that's like the rings of a tree. So as it grows outwards year by year, you get a different layer, therefore you get more rings on the inside of this tree trunk. Now whether that means I can work out how long this has been there, I don't entirely know. It depends how quickly it's been shedding. Hard to hazard a guess. But yeah. Oh, there's my finger, by the way. That's my little finger. And that's to give you some perspective as to how difficult these things are. It looks huge, doesn't it? My finger next to that, my little finger, little pinky. And it looks huge next to that. So that hopefully gives you some appreciation as to how difficult doing something like this is. You've seen a magnified, highly magnified image of what we're actually doing. But it's just so tiny. Can't begin to explain to you how tiny the proportions are, and the movements that you're making are actually so tiny. I mean, when I was doing that, you'd see the tube moving around a little bit. You probably wouldn't even see the movement in my hand if you actually watch me from doing it at the outside. This was her other ear, which, as you can see, that needed doing as well. There was an almighty chunk in that one. And
other than a little loose hair,
I could tell that there was
have you got a cap?
another thin layer of skin in this. A lovely peel. Anyone who's a fan of a peel, stay tuned, you're going to enjoy this too. And another random hair. It's a black hair now. The other ones you probably saw were a bit finer. I think this lady had mostly grey hair. So there you go, just disappeared that tube, that hair, sorry. And it often happens. I'll often ask them myself, "Have you got a cat? Have you got a dog?" It just squeaked then. That's why I had to stop, and I think change the full size tube to the big size tube. Yeah, because quite often we find hairs of pet owners in there, and you're thinking this is a different colour to what's on your head. So where's this come from? That's often the case. So here we go, nice little peel here. And I wouldn't ordinarily do this, but because of the problem that she's had in the other one, I thought we should have a go, because she's clearly developed an issue with shedding, not necessarily in the canal, more on the drum. But I think it was worth peeling as much of this off as we could. Couldn't get it all because I think it got squeaky. We had to stop at that point. And I think it's like, what I'm trying to do is go around all the edge of it and kind of bunch it up into the middle, and hopefully the whole thing will just like wrap up into like a snake skin, and you get the whole thing out in one go. That's the dream scenario. I don't think it happened. And I think I needed some oil as well. I think I put some olive oil in just to help with that. And there was one little flap left that'll probably bug those of you who've got OCD, or like, I needed to see every speck removed. I have to bear in mind there's a person on the other end of this who can only put up with so much. And I did this here after I'd done the difficult one, and she'd already been for an appointment beforehand. And she said, I wasn't looking forward to coming back the second time, because obviously she saw what the problem was, and I explained to her how difficult this was likely to be. So she was nervous to start with. On the second appointment, she said, I wasn't looking forward to coming back in again. And I had to be brutally honest with you. I said, I wasn't looking forward to you coming back either. I said, I've been dreading it all week. But thankfully, we got there in the end. And she left extremely happy. So her symptoms of not being able to hear very well and being a bit muffled had resolved. That was definitely fixed. Whether it fixes any of the issues that she's been having with a balance and a dizziness, I don't know, to be honest. I have asked her to keep me posted, and this is a few days after, and she's not called me out saying it's still an issue. This was the last bit I couldn't get. Now I suspect that it might well be just, and as I'm trying to pull this, I'm remembering it was a little uncomfortable when I was pulling something like this from the other ear. So I thought, you know what, let's just leave that. And there's a bit of oil pooling in there. You can hoover that out. Go down there with the suction tube and hoover it out, which is perfectly safe to do. What's even safer, just ask the person to tilt the head to the side. Then it'll fall out. If you wonder why I've left that in there, she did that afterwards. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I found that fascinating. I don't know about you, but I hope you enjoyed that. Leave us a comment if you did. If not, just click us a like, and if you want to follow the channel, whichever platform you're watching on, or subscribe to it, I would appreciate that massively. But for now, take care of yourself, and I'll see you later. Ta-da.